Okay, arms down, deep squat, breakout, final one. And so, again, repeat what you're going to do. You're going to go down, go on your heels, try to stay on your heels. Come on up for me. Stay on your heels and see how far you can go. So you can see she doesn't break parallel. In order to break parallel, she needs to go on her toes. So she's dysfunctional, okay? So in this pattern, you need hip flexion, knee flexion, ankle dorsiflexion. We're also looking at inversion, eversion of your ankles. And then we're looking at hip internal external rotation with hips flex, all right? So you're not getting any of this lateral moment or momentum or positioning. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how can she dorsiflex with her knee flex. Okay, so come on over here. And we're going to have to kind of go around. There you go. You can sit right here. Same position as before. You're going to have your left leg against your right toe and back of your other one, just like we did last breakout. Fists 90 degrees, arm in the middle of the body. The only difference is now I'm going to have you go ahead and bend this knee. Okay? And that should clear, the patella should clear your medial malleoli. Okay? So you can tell that does not clear her medial malleoli. Right? You got to make sure she doesn't cheat here. Because right away, if they don't have that, they're going to want to do some of this stuff, right? So you want to keep the arm right by your side. So her patella did not clear her medial malleoli. Can you switch for me? There you go. Do the same. And so you can tell, yeah, you can't really see well from that side, but well beyond going past that. And that could be why when she goes down, she needs to go on her toes, but she doesn't have that soleus, that she doesn't have a dorsiflexion with her knees flex. Okay? So that would be dysfunctional. So we're going to want to assess that passively to see if there's a mobility dysfunction there. Okay, well, we'll do that in a minute. But first, so that's what we're doing there. Okay? You also want to assess her inversion and eversion, just like we did with Michaela last time, right? Last breakout. So you're going to have her sitting, seated, and do the active inversion eversion. Same thing. So you're going to assess that. And then we're going to bring her over and look at her hips. Come over here for me. I'm going to have you sit there on the table, just like that. So now we're going to assess her hip rotation in a seated position, right? Because her hips are flexed. So that's what we're looking at, okay? So we're not going to do a prone because her prone, her hips are extended. So we're going to do it in a seated position, like so. Same thing, external rotation should be 40 degrees, internal rotation should be 30. I'm going to have you go on a little bit more on the table, just a little bit. There you go. Okay. And so we're going to keep 90-90, best we can. And we're going to have her actually do external rotation first. So I'm just going to have her just bend the knee just a tad, just to clear it. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and take this inward, and then come on back up. Okay? Make sure you're not hiking up the hip, up or down, and then come back down. And do one more. Okay? So to me, that doesn't look like it's hitting 40. Okay? It looks like that's a little restrictive, okay? Next rotation. So from there, I can do it passively. Relax for me. And yeah, right there, I feel it right away. Tense up right there. All right? Extra rotation on this side. Take it in for me. Again, doesn't look like it's getting there. Okay, relax for me. Now I'm going to take it. Resistance right there. Again, it's called that mobility dysfunction of hip external rotation. Internal rotation, go ahead and take this leg out towards me. Ooh. So she wants to hike up right away, right? Do it again for me. And relax. Okay, let me passively do it. Okay, so right away I do this and I can see her wanting to hike that up. So that's not 30. So she's limited to hip rotation as well. You take this out for me. Stops right about there. I take it out. Again, I'm not getting 30 degrees there. So she'd have mobility dysfunction of her hip, internal and external rotation. Internal rotation probably more so than external. Right? And so, again, we did active and passive here, seated. We did the dorsiflexion there, and we did inversion and eversion. So now we want to go back and look at the passive inversion and eversion, the passive dorsiflexion, okay? So if we go ahead and go on your stomach first, I'm just going to look and see, and again, it doesn't really matter here, we just have our knee bent normally about 45 degrees, just to take this gastroc out. And again, we're going to come here and we're going to assess how much dorsiflexion we have with the knee bent. Now this should be 30 degrees, dorsiflexion. So I get about right there. So you can tell that's not 30 degrees, right? So she's limited here, okay? And most likely, I'm not going to say most likely, you got to do a joint play assessment and stuff, but most likely it's going to be soleus related, right? So she doesn't get 30 degrees passively, this side as well. Okay, bend the knee. She's not getting 30 degrees passively, all right? So she's kind of stuck right there, all right? if you flip over on your back for me. Okay, perfect. And then we're going to, again, we got to assess the inversion, eversion like we did before. So again, we just bring it up, and I'm just going to be doing like a little pistol grip. I'm going to invert, evert, just assess both ankles, see how it's moving. Okay, not bad. So again, we did this with Michaela. I'm just trying to skip some steps for you. Okay. So following that, so we have hip. So hip internal and external rotators are mobility dysfunction. She has a mobility dysfunction of her ankle dorsiflexion with the knee flex. Right? And so inversion, eversion feels pretty good. Okay? So what's the other thing we got to look at? Right? We got to look at hip flexion, right? And we have to look at knee flexion. And so how we do that is we're going to bring both knees up. I'm going to have her bring both knees, grab onto the shins. There you go. Kind of reach down to the shin. Now I want you to pull up for me. Okay? And again, we're going to find that happy medium. Right? So kind of how it falls right about there. And we're assessing, do we get 120 degrees? From previous tests we did on her with the hips, we did, right? But let's say we didn't get 120 here. How we reposition is we would then take the hands from the shins and get off the knees and grab behind the thighs and then do it. And if you can improve that, that tells us that it's a knee issue. There's some kind of mobility dysfunction in the knee because you moved here and you improved it. If you moved here and you still didn't improve it, then that's telling you that it's a hip mobility dysfunction and it didn't rule out the knee at all. It could still be a knee one, right? But if you move down and it actually goes up and improves, then you're pretty solid at saying that it's a knee issue, not so much a hip issue, right? But again, if it's a hip dysfunction, they're going to be coming out, right? Their butt's going to lift off a lot earlier. That makes sense. So again, with the deep squat, you're going to have hip flexion and knee flexion, which we just tested. You're going to have ankle dorsiflexion with the knee flex, right? You're going to have inversion, eversion, and you're going to have hip intralateral rotation, right? So with Katie here, then we work on her hip intralateral rotation mobility dysfunction and her ankle dorsiflexion mobility dysfunction, because that's most likely what's causing her the inability to deep squat. And that's your arm style deep squat.